And we are recording.
Awesome. Okay, so thank you all for being here today. We're so excited to present on this topic, which we think is super important. It's instructional control, and Ms. Troyer labeled it as the best investment you can make, and we truly believe that. So feel free to add any questions that you have to the chat box. We'll try and address them as we see them. Otherwise, we'll try and leave time for some questions at the end as well. We're really glad that you could be here.
All right.
Oh yeah.
And
So, yeah, so the things, go ahead, Kim.
I was just going to say, I know that there was a lot of feedback on addressing problem behavior, and this is going to start to talk a little bit about that, but we aren't going to address a lot of problem behavior per se in this session. It's going to be more or less, what are the skills do we need to establish to kind of prevent and help with that problem behavior? But we are going to plan another session that dives a lot more into problem behavior, why it's happening, how to manage it. So this touches upon it a little bit, but it's mostly related to kind of building that instructional control and rapport with your students or children.
Okay, so we're going to go into instructional control, what it is, why it may not have been developed, some signals, pairing teaching with improving conditions, and establishing that instructional control.
All right. Okay.
All right, so we can talk about what is instructional control. So it kind of sounds a little bit more negative than it is. That control word sometimes has a negative connotation, but it really isn't. It's focused on a positive working relationship. It encompasses approach, listening, having a respectful relationship, following some rules, and really developing that positive rapport. It's, really a ready-to-learn person. It goes just beyond just kids. It's across all ages. You think about college students going into their first lecture hall. What does a ready-to-learn student person look like there? It's not just kids. So it's not about controlling the child or being authoritative. It's really establishing that the child is motivated to listen and learn and values the relationships they're forming with parents, caretakers, and teachers. Really important point is that we want our learners to cooperate because they want to, not because they're being forced to in any way. Sorry, Bree, I can't move it along.
Oh no, that's okay. There we go.
So we're going to talk about what instructional control would look like in a variety of settings. And the first one we're going to touch on is in the classroom. So in the classroom, it looks like staying near an adult, accepting reinforcement from an adult, cooperating, emitting those cooperative responses, remaining in the work area or sitting, depending on what we need them to do, and tolerating prompts. Again, it's the best investment you can make and really is our initial target as an IEP team, which includes everybody listed here: teachers, related service providers, classroom staff, parents. Everybody's trying to work together to get that instructional control. Now we're going to talk about virtual sessions. So obviously our learning looks a little bit different now, and I think it's important to know that there's differences. So a virtual session, the instructional control looks like readily and cooperatively transitioning to the computer or instructional area. I know a lot of families have certain areas set up for their virtual learning, and going there is a really important part of that instructional control piece. Looking at the screen, sometimes we have to make sure that we condition that to be a really good thing. Responding to a variety of directions and cross instructors that get harder over time. We want to see minimal to no problem behavior, and we want to see that their schedule of reinforcement, so how often we're giving them positive reinforcement, is going to thin out over time. We want that the instruction and us, we're valuable enough as a reinforcement. And remaining at the instructional area for the whole session. And I think that that is, something we'll touch on throughout this. It's sometimes hard to keep everybody working the whole session, but we really want to try and motivate them to do that. And that At-home support should be minimal. You know, the instructor that's on the screen should really be the one guiding the session.
Sorry, there's a little bit of a lag.
It's okay. And then instructional control, how it might look at home, different from those virtual sessions, is responding to caregiver directions. So if you're getting ready for a mealtime, they're coming to the table. Are they giving things up? When you guys are transitioning to leave the home, are they following your directions there? Morning routines and things like getting dressed, things like that, cooperating with routines, that's a part of it too. Following your household rules, they'll vary from household to household, but they're so important. Making sure that the child is exhibiting safe behaviors, and you know, making sure that they have positive sibling relationships. You want them to have minimal problem behavior between siblings, which, you know, I know is difficult. I think that my mom's still working on that for me and my brother. But you know, are they approaching their sibling? Are they taking and accepting things from the sibling and responding to them? Also, it's toleration. So denied access, they're not always able to have what they want. Can they tolerate that? Can they tolerate the transition? And I think as we're all home together right now, you see a lot of people in and out of spaces. Can they tolerate people coming in and out of their space, in their room, or just their work area, or, you know, is someone too close to them? Those are all things that they would need to learn to tolerate. And, you know, what does the instructional control look like for homework and school-based work in the home? And as we build these skills, I think that you see that there's really good success in the virtual sessions too. And then we also thought it would be important to include the community. So in the community, we want to make sure we have instructional control too, because, you know, if you're giving directions in the grocery store, that would be a good place to have instructional control. So come here, giving things up, transitioning, we may need to leave a restaurant or a fun place like Sky Zone, waiting appropriately, again, cooperating with those routines, following some of the community rules, which might be different from the household rules, making sure that they're exhibiting safe behaviors, and again, that toleration of things like denied access, transitions, and people in and out of their space.
All right, so instructional control is an ongoing process. This is something that never stops, and you guys might see some of this during our virtual sessions, where we're always starting with fun things. We're always starting with allowing the student to be able to request reinforcement. This is us establishing instructional control through virtual sessions. This is something we do in the classroom as well, and general education teachers do it too, and they probably don't even realize it. When kids first come in the morning, they give them morning work. They might let them play with Play-Doh. They're not coming in and taking a test and getting really hard skills right away. So we're doing those kinds of things in our virtual sessions, and something that will continue to happen as virtual learning happens and we go back in the classroom. It's always embedded into the child's day. So why hasn't instructional control been developed? The overarching reason for this is that instruction always results in things getting worse for the student. And we're going to talk about what those specific things are in the next slide. But that's kind of the overarching thing. They come and do their work and their work table, and they see their materials, and things are always challenging for them. There's not enough reinforcement. So things are always getting worse for them. And when we look at the list on the next slide, I want everybody to keep in mind, we can't blame the child for wanting to avoid worsening conditions. We avoid worsening conditions as adults. We might have that friend where every time we go to their house, we're the one that brings the food, and all they do is talk, 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 and then we leave. And now we're engaging in behaviors to not hang out with that friend. So we can't blame the child. It's always the adult's fault. And I think that's it seems like a harsh quote, but it's something that's really important to keep in mind, because there are a lot of factors in instruction and in the environment that we as adults can control to make conditions better for the child and for our students. So these are the reasons why instructional control might not have been developed. So skill deficits and barriers to learning. Some barriers could be if a student has GI issues, or if they have a discrimination issue where they can't discriminate between letters or colors, and that kind of goes hand in hand with instructional content is too hard. And every time they come to their work area, demands are being placed on them that are above their skill level. And it's not saying that we can't give them hard skills, but we don't want to be giving them all hard skills or mostly hard skills. The next one is too many demands. So you might see that during sessions, especially now, we're embedding a lot of reinforcement. There's not as many demands. And we'll slowly fade out the reinforcement, but we don't want to place too many demands that students are engaging in behaviors to escape from the instruction. The next one is instruction always starts with removing valuable items. This we see a lot. People say, all right, iPad's all done, time for work. And that signals to them that things are going to get worse. Here comes the work, and all the fun's done. We want work to be fun. We want work to be valuable, and we want those valuable things to continue to happen during instruction, and we want to keep embedding them. So removing them right at the start is sometimes just the worst way to start it. All right, insufficient reinforcement during instruction. So not using enough reinforcement. That goes in with too many demands. Every time they come, there's so many demands placed on them, so many questions asked, and we're not delivering enough good things to them during sessions. Negative reinforcers are used the most. So this is getting reinforcement to get away. A lot of times during sessions, you're seeing staff use positive reinforcement. So we are giving videos, we're giving them, peekaboos, we're giving them my dog that I put in the screen. We're giving things, but negative reinforcement would be them being able to escape the work and go take a break, go to the carpet, which is okay to some extent. But if that is constantly being used, then the work is not valuable and it's signaling that bad things are happening. Also, the history of reinforcement of problem behaviors. So if a child continues to come to or we ask them to come to the table and they engage in problem behaviors and then we let them leave, then they know, okay, every time I come to the table and I try to escape, then I've learned that that is a way for me to get out of instruction. And that's something that they've learned to get out of it. And then even our demeanor and tone. So all of these things considered, if sometimes, and we were just talking about this earlier, sometimes we do all of these things as instructors, but they just don't like something about our tone, about how our gestures. I had a student last year that wouldn't approach because of the proximity of where it was Kim and I, where we would be standing to him. So as we changed our posture even, we got better approach. So if all of these things are being done appropriately, then, and we're still not getting instructional control, we need to look at our tone, volume, some other things that we as adults could be contributing. I have to keep moving my camera around. Right. So behaviors that consistently turn off the warning signals are often not hard to miss. So these are behaviors that are clear to us that they do not want this work to happen. They don't want it to start. They want to go away. They want maybe the computer to go away. They don't want to come to their table. These are the very obvious ones: hitting, biting, running away. There's probably other ones, a kid vocally saying, I don't want to do this work. Those are the obvious ones. But the ones that we sometimes miss and we need to really catch are the ones listed below. That's going to be self-stimulatory behavior. That might be wiggling fingers, wiggling in the chair, not attending. So they're not even looking at instruction, not responding at all, sometimes just sitting and you're asking questions and they're just ignoring us. And then moving in a different direction than you are in the instructional area, or avoiding specific environments completely. If you have a student that is completely right now avoiding the computer, avoiding the room where the computer is, avoiding the chair that they do their virtual sessions those are all signs that instructional control is not there. All right, so all of these things, presentation of instructional demands, materials, the teacher, the table, work area, these are all neutral things at the beginning. The only thing that makes them bad and become bad for our learners are all of the things I just listed. A table is a table until we start to add in instructional content that's too hard, too many demands. Now this table becomes this place where I come and I do this work and I don't get enough reinforcement, and now I don't want to come to this table at all. But before all of those things happened at the table was pretty neutral. So when that happens, the effect of that is escaping and getting rid of all of those things are the main goal. And that's when you start to see the behaviors we talked about on the previous slide. They're going to engage in any behaviors to escape all of these demands and materials because they know that things are going to get hard. There's not going to be anything valuable. And then we're going to talk about the signals that our learners specifically can see. So at school, these are a list of things that can signal that work is coming, that worsening conditions are about to happen, and that things are about to get hard. So teachers and adults being the first thing. There's, you might have one teacher that walks towards you and when they're coming, I'm going right to my desk and I'm going to get a lot of demands. And now they just escape that teacher all the time. Anytime that teacher comes towards them, they want to get away. The work area in general, that could be the desk, it could be any sort of table. And every time they go to that table, they're always working. So for example, in the classroom, typically what we do is work happens everywhere. It can happen everywhere. It happens at their instructional area table. It happens in the general education classroom. Work and demands happens on the carpet. Work kind of happens everywhere, and so does reinforcement. So that we do that as a proactive strategy to avoid any area being like a work area. The child's name could also be a signal. Every time I say, let's say Jeffrey, all right, Jeffrey, come over here, we're gonna work. And every time now Jeffrey hears his name, he knows that I'm gonna be telling him, you're gonna be doing a lot of hard work and things that you don't really enjoy. And now every time he hears his name, he's gonna be avoiding and know that, okay, work's coming.
This happens a lot in the home too, guys. I often say this to parents, or like, I don't know why my kids never respond when I call their name. Well, a lot of times we don't realize, but we have too many pairings of the name, and what follows their name is something that we're asking them to do. So a demand in some way, or something that they're not going to want to do. And oftentimes we don't say their name in just conversation, or as, something that really great that they did, or you're telling them a really fun story, or you just want to show them something really cool. And we don't realize that, if those get paired, like Bree had mentioned on the previous slide, the more pairings that you have, my name's pretty neutral, but now if you always pair it with a demand or a chore or something you're asking me to do, or something you're telling me not to do, I'm just going to stop responding to my name, because now when I hear my name, I just want to run away or ignore it.
And that kind of goes in with eye contact too. A lot of times I'll see people say, look into my eyes, look into my eyes. And then once the child looks into their eyes, it's, okay, now you're going to work. So now kids are avoiding eye contact because there's been enough pairings of eye contact, work. And instead we could repair eye contact as, you look at me and something good happens. We make eye contact, something good happens. And then also timers. So timers can also signal that bad things are coming. I know a lot of people do use them as strategies, but just do keep in mind that they can signal that they hear that sound and now work is headed my way. Sorry, there's someone in the waiting room. Oh, there's a chat, actually.
Oh, it didn't pop up for me.
Me either.
That's weird.
All right, so just like we see signals at school, the signals in virtual sessions are going to look a little bit different, but they would have the same escaping effect. So the student sees the computer. I know in a lot of my sessions at the beginning, it was just, let's have fun on the computer. We're not going to place a lot of demands, because I don't want when they see the sight of the computer, that they shut down, they try to escape. And I know some parents were using, one computer as a work computer, and then the student has their own separate reinforcer iPad, which I think is great. But I think it's also important to note that you should be trying to do a little bit of both. On the reinforcer iPad, you can add some work in there, and also doing some reinforcement on their work computer. Because then I've had students that only the tablet where the work comes on, that's the computer they don't want to be anything near, but they don't mind being near their other tablet. So make sure to mix and vary what you're doing on computers if you are doing that at home, if you're seeing some of those escape behaviors. Also during virtual sessions, the same that we would see in the classroom would be the work area. If you have a work area at home where they are doing their virtual learning and now all of a sudden they're avoiding going into those rooms, they don't want to sit in that chair, that doesn't even have to just be during virtual sessions. Maybe you're just trying to use that chair during dinner time and they don't want to sit at that table because it's been so paired with virtual sessions and things being hard. Also instructional materials. For example, we use a lot of IT Boom Learning as one of our virtual platforms for instruction. And sometimes that can be aversive. Once that Boom Learning page pops up, escape behavior starts to happen because they know work's coming. So we have to make sure that not just the areas are paired with good things, we have to make sure that our materials, and that's why the Boom Learning decks have a lot of different reinforcers embedded in them. So it's not just a deck full of work. Like at school, when we do a card sort, they have their deck, but we embed a lot of reinforcement in between those demands. Another signal could be the parent just leaving the transition. You just say, all right, it's time to work, time to see your teachers, school time, something along those lines. And they know, all right, virtual sessions coming on. And then also timers. Again, setting a timer to let them know work is going to signal that escape behavior. If you're saying to yourself, well, I use a timer and it doesn't cause that, some of these might not cause your child to engage in problem behavior. But if it doesn't, then that's great and you can keep using that as a strategy. But if you are noticing when the timer goes off and the kid's engaging in escape behavior, it might be a good idea to consult with the IEP team on some other ways to establish instructional control or to make that timer more of a positive thing. And then these are signals in the home that things are coming. So it could be the same at school. With parents and caregivers, a certain adult approaching you, you know things are going to get worse. Maybe that specific parent places a lot more demands on you. We all, even as adults, I favor my dad over my mom because my mom places a lot more demands on me than my dad does. So also certain areas of the house, the bathroom, things are a lot worse going into the bathroom. Timers, again, eye contact, the same thing at school. Every time we make eyes, then we get some sort of demand placed. The child's name and then also homework and chores can be a signal. It's time to do your homework. It's time to do chores. Things are going to be getting harder from there on out. And also household items, which I think is a really important piece to talk about. At school in a lot of our programming, we do a lot of pairing of items where we'll just have the student touch the utensil. We'll have them just touch the hat instead of totally putting it on. Some household items can really evoke a lot of problem behavior from students because they might be too hard to use, or maybe the tissue is always like being put in their face and kind of like really uncomfortable for them. So now every time they see a tissue, they want to run. But it's really important to pair some of these items as well. All right, Kim.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I couldn't tell what side we were on. So, and just as we're talking about this, I know we've kind of talked about it a little bit, but just keep in mind that this is not, this isn't specifically related to your children or the students that we work with. I have these exact same trainings and conversations with my general education teachers, parents of, typically developing children. Me and my husband have our own talks about my own children. It's again, it's just kind of a concept of, human behavior really all together. And what we all, there are lots of signals for us that might evoke things are getting worse and I want to avoid it. Bree mentioned certain friends. There's certain grocery stores, especially probably now more than ever. I know I've been avoiding Giant because there were the way they had that store designed was a mess, and there was a lot of things in there that used to be a neutral to me, aisles and the checkout lines, that now, because they're paired with all the tape and people going different ways and super long lines, and I had to wait in there for an hour before, all of that has now become aversive, and it's evoking my own escape behavior, and I don't go there anymore. I decided to do other ways, engage in other behaviors to get the groceries that I want during this quarantine right now. And there's a lot of examples you could use. The way that you drive to work, the friends you call when you need something, or the family members you call when you need something, and the people you don't. There's a reason why you avoid them, and there's a reason why you avoid places, and it all comes down to those signals and how they've been paired over time. And when we talk about, instruction and getting students and people and teenagers, even, you're going to have to reestablish instructional control. When, if you're a parent of a teenager, you probably already know that when they're, they have different school they go to now, different groups of friends, they're changing developmentally, there's a lot going on with a teenager, and you probably have to reestablish instructional control in your household, and I'm sure in school. So there's a lot of different things that can change instructional control, but we all struggle with it. It's part of just us as humans, and it's important for us in the classroom, especially, to make sure that we're really working hard to establish it, because if you don't, and you don't work to establish that instructional control, you're going to have a student that really struggles to learn and really struggles to be responsive in school and home, or even out in the community. And that can put everybody at risk. So, it's the most important thing to do when you're looking at establishing instructional control is getting rid of that warning signal. How can I change what used to be a warning signal that made me want to, engage in all this escape behavior, to now become a signal that, oh, my life's getting better. This isn't so bad. This is great. And now I respond differently to it. And how we start to go about that is by pairing instruction with improving conditions. And you just try to flip that contingency and flip the way you look at it. So if we can pair instruction with reinforcement and with things that are going to make the learner want to be around it, then we're making it improve, and we're not making it aversive. We want to shift from being something they find difficult to something that they don't, and something that they want to be a part of, and something that they want to engage in. And we want to repair ourselves. So, we shouldn't just be there to be like, well, yep, we're telling you what to do. You have to do these chores, or you have to do this work, and then see ya. No, we have to repair ourselves in the absence of all of that. So let's just have fun. Let's just, demand free. Let's just get to know each other. Let's hang out. Let's do silly things. Let's have fun. Let's do something that you love to do. And let's just kind of repair in that way.
Did it change for you, Kim?
Yep, now it did. And again, I already kind of said this, but it's ongoing. So as environments change, as we get older, we're seeing it right now. We've had to reestablish instructional control during these virtual sessions because everything was new, and we're requiring them to learn at home now, rather through a computer, rather than with us in a school building. And that's really different. The first few days of school, no teacher, and if they are, they're going to have problems the entire school year. And I try to stress this. You take that first week to build a rapport, to have low demands, have fun, establish your classroom routines, start to, have a schedule and follow through, and build trust with your students, get to know them, let them familiarize themselves with their new classroom. If you do that first week, you're already going to have a lot more success with getting students to learn and cooperate by taking that time to do that. And you have to reestablish it. They come back to school and you have to redo it all over again. So you want to make sure that, it's ongoing, and accept that it's ongoing. We have some days that are better than others. And when you start to notice those signs that there's these signals coming back, and, behaviors are coming back again, and I'm not seeing so much cooperation, that's your sign we need to go back and we need to redo the process. And it might take shorter this time, but you have to redo it. And if you skip over that and you don't accept that it's an ongoing process, it's going to be harder to get that instructional control back and make progress. And one thing I didn't touch upon is within those virtual sessions, that might be why in the beginning, you know, in the beginning of the school year, we allow some things to happen that we're not going to allow a month into the school year because we're establishing instructional control. Virtual sessions too, same thing. We had probably had a lot more reinforcement, a lot more fun things. It maybe seemed like we weren't teaching your children anything because we were trying to establish instructional control and prevent behaviors from even happening, because we knew there was going to be a long time they needed to learn. So we had more flexibility. They might have sat on the couch instead of at a desk. Maybe they were standing and leaving the screen a lot more than we might allow now. So there's things you're going to allow in the beginning as you're building instructional control that eventually you'll shape and you won't allow. But you have to have that give and take in the beginning. So again, getting rid of that warning signal is what's going to help you develop a willing learner. And it's not about exerting control. It's about learners that want to be there. We're not trying to control them. We're not forcing them to be there. We want them to want to be there. And you see such a difference when you have a child or a student that wants to be there, that wants to listen to you, that wants to engage in activities and instruction with you, that wants to do a chore at home. If you can make it willing, you know, then you've really seen that you've established that instructional control, and that compliance is not equal cooperation. We are not trying to force anybody to comply. We want cooperation. You want that relationship where they are responding to the things that you are asking them to do. And then when you have that, that leads to different responding. It leads to, again, a child and a student that wants to be there, that wants to cooperate. They're going to work harder. They're going to accomplish more. They're going to acquire more. And behaviors will really go down when you do establish that. And that's the end goal. And that's one thing when we said that point of negative reinforcers, think about it. I often try to have people think about this in their jobs. If your job is something that you do just so you can be done at 5 o'clock, you're probably pretty unhappy. And you may not be exerting the most effort and work that you can in your job because you're working just for it to be done. I'm working to get through my day right now, and at 5 o'clock, everything shuts down and I don't want to look at it again until I wake up in the next morning. But if you are someone that's like, yeah, I'll take that project on, or I'm really excited to do this, or how about we do this? And you're coming up with new ideas and you're spending more time with work. You're happy, your mood, you know, internally you feel good about your work, then it's most likely because it's positive reinforcement and then things that you value in your work. You're not trying to just do it just to get it done. We want the same thing with our students in school. We want them to do it because they love it, not because they can't wait for school to end or they can't wait for their next class and they just want to go home. If you see that, then we're going to have problems with that student's progress, and they're most likely the students that might be making slower progress or might struggle a little bit with certain grades in certain areas. So it's something that we really strive to make sure isn't the primary thing that's driving that learner. So the strategies now. So we talked about what instructional control is, what it looks like when a learner has it, the signals and the reasons why we don't get instructional control. So now what do we do about it? How do we change those conditions to be improving instead of worsening? A lot of these things are what we talk about at IEP meetings and put in the specially designed instruction section of your child's IEP because it's really important part of their programming. So strategies for improving conditions are going to look like really just pairing our instruction with these things that you see on this list right here. Competing reinforcers. We've especially had to get creative with this, and I work with a lot of teams right now. There's a lot in the home environment right now that's making it really hard for us to get instruction because maybe there's a sibling that's playing outside and now I have to be here on a computer screen with my teachers. That's way less fun than going outside and playing like my brother or sister is doing. Or my TV's right there. My comfort zone, they're in their comfort zones where they're most comfortable and they feel most safe right now. And That's really hard to compete with when mom and dad are there, when my bedroom's right down the hall and I can just go hang out there, where all my favorite toys are here. So that's making it that much harder that we're going to see good progress and success with these virtual sessions, because we're competing with all of that in the home. That is why, we ask people to be patient right now, that we're trying to find a lot of different things. Is there anything you can bring to sessions? What new videos can we include in their sessions? How can we get creative? If it seems like we're giving and giving a lot and there's more fun than instruction, that's really just why. We're trying to compete with what's going in a home and maintain their attention for longer periods of time. And we could have had instructional control in school and been really valuable to them. But now when you're changing the environment into home, we might not be as valuable. We might not be as fun because my parents are more fun or my home's more fun. So we have to, take time and really pair with a lot and think about competing reinforcers to compete with that. It's one reason why we use errorless teaching, because if we teach errorlessly and we can give you the answers rather than saying, come on, you know this, come on, think a little harder, come on, you did it yesterday, and still nothing, then our learner's going to start to get frustrated. If we give them the answer right off the bat, they don't have to take that time to really think about it, make some errors along the way because they do forget the answer. We're making it a lot less response effort for them. And that doesn't mean that we're giving them answers and we never require them to think on their own, because we always check and make sure they are acquiring it on their own, and we don't have to give them that answer and teach it errorlessly. But off the bat, when it's a new skill or a more challenging skill, we're going to, because we want to prevent instruction being aversive and something they want to avoid. Often too, if the more errors that we make with any task that we do as a human, the harder it is for us to acquire it, because we've practiced more errors than we have practiced it the right way. So you want to, that's, one reason we make teaching being an improving condition rather than worsening. Pairing instruction and materials, the computer with a lot of positive reinforcement. They might not have been used to a computer. So now we had to take that first week and two and really pair it with reinforcement and let them know that this is a good thing. When your mom or dad tells you, or your caretaker tells you to come over to the computer because it's time to work, or your teachers are there, they're running to it now because we've paired it with reinforcement and they know it's a good thing. We might do a variety of things with the computer. Some students are doing little social groups it's not just demand, but see your friends, see your teachers, see different teachers, see people you really like. We have to take the time to pair that instruction and the material so it's not signaling things are going to get worse. We feed in demands gradually. And again, we do that because if someone asks me to do something really, really hard, rather than asking me to do some easy things first, or if I have a really long IEP meeting on a Monday morning and I didn't get time to fade into my day, it's going to be harder for me. It's going to be harder for anybody. So we fade in demands gradually. And we also keep a fast pace of instruction. If we have a lot of wait time or downtime in between our instruction, that usually allows for more problem behaviors to happen. But if we keep really good active responding and really good engagement, then we see less problem behaviors. So you want to keep it fast paced. We mix and vary, because if someone, asks you to do the same thing over and over and over and over again, it's going to get really boring and you're eventually going to want to escape it and not come to that instruction the next time. But if we can mix and vary and do different things throughout our session, it's going to keep it fresh, it's going to keep it fun, and I'm going to find instruction valuable. Interspersing easy and hard tasks, kind of the same thing with fading in demands. I don't want my entire day to be really hard. And there's days that it is. But think about how you feel on those days. Think about are you ready the very next morning to return to that instruction or return to your work? Or are you feeling a little less motivated to return to it after a really hard day and you're wondering, is it Friday yet? Same thing for our students in the classroom. If we give all novel or all hard things, they're definitely going to want to avoid our instruction. So we want to keep easy and hard things, not even just to review and repeat old skills that they've learned so they don't lose it and they retain it, but to prevent problem behavior and make instruction fun. Task novelty, same thing. We do things across exemplars. We try to add things in, do different things with our instruction. I do the same thing with gen ed teachers. Make it fun, add in fun things. Talk about bringing their favorite characters to your math lesson. What could you do to make the task seem novel so it's fun and exciting and not the same old boring, like open your workbook. So how can we make sure tasks are novel and the things that we're asking so we keep motivation high? Session duration, same thing, keep it short. The longer it goes on, the longer the easier you're gonna lose focus and motivation to be there. We want to build up to longer sessions, and with virtual sessions, some we had to start even shorter. But we did that so we could get instructional control so learning then can happen and we can be learning for longer. Also, the quicker that you deliver reinforcement, the quicker you're going to see instructional control build. If there's too big of a delay in reinforcement, it's not going to be valuable enough, and instruction's not going to be valuable enough, and I'm just not going to care about it. But if something good happens quick and immediately, then it's going to give me the momentum to keep going. So those are all strategies that we utilize, again, to get instructional control, keep students wanting to be there with instruction, and not make instruction a warning signal that life is about to get worse. These are some of those crucial skills that we look for and we target in order to build instructional control. These are the skills that are really crucial to make sure you have in all environments. You need these out in the community, you need these in the home, and you need these in school in order to have a learner or a child that you could say, yes, they have, this working cooperative relationship with everyone, no matter where they are. That's the end goal. So these are the skills that are really critical in order to teach it and that we make sure we target. The things I just went over are ways we make sure our instruction is fun and not aversive, so they want to be there. These are the skill deficits that can make instructional control really challenging and can make problem behaviors happen more often, which hurts your chances at building instructional control when you have a lot of problem behavior. You can eliminate problem behavior by teaching these replacement skills right here and make instruction fun. You have a willing learner that is rocking it and doing awesome in a lot of different environments and is really cooperative, and you can ask them to do anything and they're going to do it. And you can ask them to do something at home and they're doing it right away with, a little bit of whining maybe because that's appropriate, right? But not a lot of challenging behavior. So a ready to learn body, what that looks like is they have their personal space, hands to self. They're not touching all the kids around the carpet. They're not rolling around on the carpet. They're not touching all the materials as you're trying to teach. They have safe hands. They have body to themselves. They can give up things readily when you say, you know what, that activity is done, or you got to put your toys away, or you have to stop playing your video games, or you just have to give me that toy that's in your hand. Whatever it is, whatever reinforcer you want them to stop, they give it up readily with no problem behavior. That's a crucial skill we have to see and build to make sure that we're getting instructional control. Waiting. Waiting is hard to do, but there's going to be waiting throughout their entire rest of their life. They need to know how to wait in a line, how to wait for something that they want, how to wait for your attention, especially right now as parents are working and your kids are learning. My kids are a mess right now because they are waiting for my attention so much. So I'm really working on getting that back. And anyone that's been on a Zoom call with me knows that I do a lot of wait. You have to wait because I need them to have that skill. So, waiting is another way that you get good instructional control. Appropriate sitting and posture. We want them to be comfortable in the learning environment. If they're not comfortable and we don't have the appropriate seat arrangements for them, we're not setting them up with a success in their learning environment, they're not going to want to be there, and we're lessening our chances at getting instructional control. So making sure that we're giving them those tools to have that appropriate seating, that their learning environment's comfortable, they have space, they have some privacy. I know that can be hard in the home right now, but the more you can arrange their environment to where there's a lot less distractions, the better, and the better instructional control and performance we're going to get during their sessions. We need them approaching adults, because if you can't approach an adult and you don't know that adults give you fun things and give you the things that you just need in life, that they're valuable, then you're going to have a learner that's trying to kind of fend for themselves and get everything that they need on their own. And you want them to be able to know that it's adults that get them these things, that gets them help, that gets them, say they are out in the community and they get lost. Will they approach an adult, because that's who's going to help them. So approaching adults, transitioning when you need them to transition, even emergency transitions that come up, fire drills, things like that, we need instructional control for. Also tolerating when they can't have their way, they can't have things they want, they can't have things their siblings have that they want, or their sibling does something they don't like during a game. They have to be able to tolerate that that's different than the way they wanted it. All of these skills are so crucial to instructional control. It's going to replace problem behavior, eliminate a lot of problem behavior, and really create a flexible, cooperative learner that's engaging in a lot of appropriate life skills. So we prioritize them. You don't want to teach them all at once. We'll prioritize them, usually kind of starting up here and working our way down here. But you do want to make sure that we're working on these. These are honestly, again, it's the best investment you can make. These skills are as important, I'd argue, if not more important, than anything that anyone's ever going to learn. And you will hear any teacher of any type of learner say that, because if we don't have social emotional learning, behavioral skills, and instructional control, then learning other skills just isn't going to happen. So these things really need to be intact and prioritized. So across environments too, it doesn't just mean school, home as well as in the community. So I wanted to add a slide here for all the parents, and what, we talked a lot about what improving conditions look like in the home, but in school, in the classroom, in our virtual sessions, but what does that look like in the home? And I wanted to give this to you. There is a resource from Robert Schramm, who is a behavior analyst, but he has a book on Amazon, but he also has a document that we're gonna attach an email out to all of you once we email this PowerPoint, that talks about the 7 steps to instructional control in the home. He does a lot with a variety of parents, even just teenagers, when parents are battling some different behaviors that their teenagers might be doing. How do I keep this instructional control in my home? And he has 7 steps and how to get there. If you even just Google this, you'll find a lot of different instructional videos on YouTube where this is talked about. It's a pretty popular book as well as method. And these are the things that he talks about. They're very similar to what we kind of just talked about in the classroom. It's just at home. So if you can maintain control of items in your home environment, and you decide when your child gets access to them, you are now becoming more valuable. You're the giver. You're the person they have to go to in order to get control and access to the things they want and need. If you're that fun parent, you try and show the fun as much as you can. Make interactions really enjoyable. Embed things in their day or week that's filled with things they love the most. You're establishing instructional control, and that you're a valuable parent. Mean what you say. So if you say something, follow through. If you promised you were going to do something with them, follow through with it. If you told them they had to do something, follow through with it. The more you follow through with your words, the more valuable you are, and the more trust that you're building. So mean what you say and follow through with it. And then also show them the benefit. When you do what I'm asking you to do, there has to be a benefit. There's a benefit to everything that we all do in life. We don't work for free. There's a benefit. Expect the same thing from your child. I often hear, well, they should do that because I asked them to, or they should do that because they need to know that's what it's expected of them. Well, we don't often have that same attitude when it comes to work. Some things, yeah. But in order to get them to do what you're asking them to do, and know that they need to do it because you asked them to, you do it through this process, and you do it through establishing instructional control. Not, just to exert your parental control over them, but to do it because you want them to do it. If you want them to do a chore, well, show them the benefit of doing that chore. And then eventually they'll do chores, and you don't even really have to maybe show them the benefit as much. They're going to do it because they want to, because they value you as a parent. That's your end goal. But you need to show them the benefit in it. You need to reinforce their positive responses a lot in the effort that they're doing. Be every response at first, and then intermittently. Our end goal is we don't want to have a lot of more tangible external reinforcement. Our end goal is always that you're producing this work because you love us that much, that our words you want to follow and you want to do what we're asking you to do, not because I have a piece of candy or not because I have a fun video I'm going to show you. But we have to start there. And once we establish instructional control, we should be really good about fading that other stuff out, and that we just have a learner that's working because they love work. Make sure you know your child's priorities, and that means what they like, what they love, what their reinforcers are. Not necessarily what you want for them, but what do they love? What do they gravitate towards the most? You want to know their priorities, but also know your own and let them know your priorities as well. And again, follow through. Show, that if your child's going to ignore your instructions or demands or things you're asking for them, make sure then that you don't back off and just say, okay, fine, whatever, go do what you want. Because now you're reinforcing that behavior, and it's more likely they're going to do it in the future. So you don't want them to acquire reinforcement because they ignored your instruction or what you asked them to do. That's a very brief overview, but you can, I'll share out his whole article where he talks about that, and he gives you a lot more in-depth explanation over those 7 points. But I wanted to have a little bit of a tool. I think the bulk of what we wanted to go over is, how we acquire instructional control in the classroom setting. And also now with our new challenge in the virtual sessions, and knowing that that's going to continue in an extended school year, maybe with new teachers, maybe not. We're going to try to make sure not. But we might have to rebuild some instructional control. Even those couple weeks off of no sessions, we might have to rebuild some of that instructional control. So we wanted you to kind of have those tools to understand why we're doing it, and also how we do it, and the importance of doing it. But those are some tips for home. I did, on the last slide, also give a resource for another video. Dr. Megan Miller, she also talks a lot about instructional control. There's a YouTube link for the Behavioral Observations podcast that she spoke about this on. She also works with Robert Schramm and helped with those 7 steps to instructional control. So we attach those resources for you as well. But I think, overall, hopefully you have a little bit better understanding of, why we do some of the things that we do, and how important building instructional control is. I will say it's in these virtual sessions, and sometimes when we're out in the community on our monthly community outings, we can really see the students that we really need to work on instructional control with, and that we haven't yet established it, and what we need to do that. And the ones that have learners that we have really solid instructional control with, we didn't have to do much with their virtual sessions. They're doing awesome. And they're responding well to it with a lot of, only a little bit of time and a little bit of change to reestablish it. They're also the students that are really safe in the community, that are responding still to our directions, and those things have generalized because we have that instructional control. And it's not to say that if we don't have it, that's bad, or that's not good for your child. It just shows us that we have to work on it, and that it's important. And that it's something that we still need to address. So it's a crucial skill. Hopefully you understand a little bit more about it. But if there's any questions, I didn't see any questions pop up as we went along, but if you have any questions, feel free to post them in these next few minutes while we're in here. Annie and Bree, if there's anything else you wanted to add or final thoughts.
No, I think a lot of the stuff we'll also cover in a couple weeks too. If there are any questions related to behaviors or how to do some of those things like give or transitions, we're gonna target those things as topics too.
Yeah, and you might see some of those things targeted in sessions, and it might seem a little silly at first, for example, if we're working on students giving up reinforcers, I might say to a student that has a drink that they don't want to give up, I might show them, you know, here's my phone and we can do an exchange. And if they do it successfully, they even get the drink back. And you're kind of like, well, I thought we just wanted them to give it, but we're just trying to establish those very early skills of when you hear to give something up, it's going to result in something better. You gave it up willingly, you got a phone, and you get the drink right back. So some things might seem silly at first, but there is a rhyme or reason for everything. Another example is accepting no or tolerating no. Someone might ask for, French fries, and you say you can't have French fries, but you can have French fries and chicken nuggets. So they're getting better things. No doesn't mean something bad. No gives better things. And that's some of the stuff we do in the beginning of teaching some of these skills, is we make all of those words and all of those things that Kim kind of talked about, very positive things in the beginning. And the end goal is when you hear no, or when you are asked to give something up, you give it up without any sort of exchange, and you just listen to what, was asked.
All right. If we don't have any questions, you can always reach out to any of us. You can reach out to your teacher as well. We're always here to support you. So thank you so much for coming today. We're so glad that you could be here with us, and let us know if you have any questions.
Thanks, guys. We'll send this out with the resources as well.
Thank you. We appreciate you all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Oh.